Have you ever wondered how a small island nation became a global empire ruling over a quarter of the world's population? Let's journey back to the late 16th and early 17th century, where the foundations of the British Empire were being laid. The origins of the British Empire can be traced to the adventurous spirit of the Elizabethan era. The desire for new trading routes, precious metals, and exotic goods led England to set its eyes on the vast, uncharted horizons of the New World. The establishment of colonies in North America and the Caribbean was the first step in a journey that would transform the British Isles from a peripheral European power to a global titan. In North America, the British established colonies such as Virginia and Maryland. These colonies offered new opportunities for trade, and they also served as a buffer against rival European powers. In the Caribbean, islands like Barbados and Jamaica were colonized. These tropical outposts became the heart of a lucrative sugar trade, fueled by the labor of enslaved Africans. But it wasn't just the establishment of colonies that laid the groundwork for the British Empire. It was also the growth of trade, navigation, and exploration. The British were pioneers in developing new maritime technologies and navigation techniques, which allowed them to traverse the globe more efficiently than ever before. The British East India Company, chartered in the early 17th century, established trade with the Indian subcontinent, paving the way for future British control. The growth of the British Empire was not a straightforward or uncontested process. It was marked by conflict, both with indigenous peoples and with rival European powers. Yet, through a mixture of military might, diplomatic skill, and economic power, Britain's global reach expanded. So from the shores of a small island nation, the British embarked on a journey of exploration and expansion that would ultimately span the globe. Through the establishment of colonies, the growth of trade, and the advancement of navigation and maritime technology, the British Empire was born, and it was set to become one of the most influential powers the world has ever seen. As the centuries rolled on, Britain's influence only grew stronger. But how did they manage to expand their power so extensively? The 18th and 19th centuries were a period of immense growth for the British Empire. With an insatiable thirst for power and resources, Britain spread its influence far and wide, across the African continent, the vast lands of Asia, and the remote islands of the Pacific. This expansion was not without its reasons or its tools. The Industrial Revolution played a pivotal role in boosting Britain's economic power. It was a time of extraordinary progression, with the country transforming from a largely agrarian economy to one powered by industry and machine manufacturing. Now let's delve a little deeper into this transformative period. The heart of the Industrial Revolution pulsed with technological advancements. The steam engine, invented by James Watt in the late 18th century, revolutionized transportation and industry. It powered the factories, the railways, the ships, all instrumental in expanding Britain's global reach. It enabled goods, people, and ideas to move faster and further than ever before. But that's not all. The telegraph, another remarkable invention of the era, shrank the world in a way that was previously unimaginable. Suddenly, messages that would have taken weeks, even months to deliver, could now be sent in a matter of minutes. This revolution in communication was a game changer for the British Empire. It meant faster decision-making, better control, and tighter coordination across its vast territories. These technological advancements fueled Britain's expansion, but they did more than just that. They created a web of interconnected territories, a global network under British rule. This wasn't just an empire, it was the first example of globalization, a world shrunk and shaped by technology. The Industrial Revolution propelled the British Empire to new heights, creating an interconnected world under its rule. The British Empire had become the world's policeman during a period known as Pax Britannica. But what does this term actually mean? Well, Pax Britannica, which translates to British peace, was a period in the 19th century, more specifically between 1815 and 1914, when Britain emerged as the world's leading superpower. It was a time of relative peace across the globe, largely enforced by the British Empire's naval and economic prowess. During this era, Britain had the largest navy in the world, and its economic clout was unmatched. This dominance allowed Britain to play a major role in international affairs. It was able to dictate the rules of trade, enforce treaties, and mediate conflicts. The empire was the world's peacekeeper, and it used this position to further its own interests. But what did this mean for the colonies within the empire? Well, While Pax Britannica brought technological advancements and modern infrastructure to these regions, it was not without its drawbacks. The colonies were subjected to British rule, and their resources were exploited to fuel the empire's industrial and economic growth. This was a time of massive wealth accumulation for Britain, but it often came at the expense of the colonized nations. The British also brought their own cultural norms, legal systems, and education models to the colonies. While this led to significant societal changes, it also resulted in the suppression of local cultures and traditions. The impact of these changes continues to be felt in many former colonies even today. Pax Britannica also saw the spread of the English language, which is now one of the most widely spoken languages globally. This has had a profound impact on global communication and has shaped the world as we know it. So, Pax Britannica was more than just a period of peace. It was a time of British dominance that reshaped the world in profound ways. It brought about significant economic, cultural, and political changes, some of which we continue to grapple with today. The reign of Pax Britannica marked the height of British dominance, but it was not to last forever. The First World War marked a turning point for the British Empire. But what was the impact of this devastating conflict? As the world plunged into war in 1914, the British Empire was not spared. With territories spanning across the globe, it found itself in the thick of the fray. From the trenches of the Western Front to the deserts of the Middle East, the empire committed millions of soldiers and vast resources to the Allied cause. The strain it put on the empire was immense. The war effort required a massive mobilization of manpower, not just from Britain, but from across the empire. From India to Canada, Australia to South Africa, millions answered the call. It was a global effort, a testament to the reach and influence of the British Empire. But that cost was high. The loss of life was staggering, and the economic impact severe. The war drained the empire's resources, leading to an increased reliance on borrowed money and resulting in a significant rise in national debt. The end of the war in 1918 did not bring immediate relief. The Spanish flu pandemic swept across the globe, further straining resources and claiming more lives. The empire was left reeling, its strength and influence waning. And there was another consequence of the war: the rise of nationalism in the colonies. The promise of self-governance in return for support during the war ignited hopes of independence. From India to Ireland, movements for self-rule gained momentum. The seeds of decolonization were sown. The post-war years were a time of profound change. The empire was faced with a new global order, economic challenges, and the rising tide of nationalism in its colonies. It was a period of adjustment, of grappling with the new realities and coming to terms with its diminished role on the world stage. The Great War shook the very foundations of the empire, setting the stage for a period of decline. The war had changed the empire irrevocably. The aftermath of the Great War would shape the course of the British Empire in the years to come, marking the beginning of the end of its global dominance. The once mighty British Empire began to crumble in the 20th century. But what led to its downfall? World War II played a pivotal role in this decline. The war was a colossal strain on Britain's resources. Despite emerging victorious, the country was left economically weakened, with a debt that skyrocketed into billions. The cost of defending the empire, coupled with the damages inflicted during the war, was a heavy burden that Britain could no longer bear. The empire that had once commanded vast resources found itself grappling with a crippling financial crisis. Simultaneously, the winds of change were blowing across the colonies. The decolonization movement was gaining momentum. Nations under British rule, inspired by the ideals of freedom and self-determination, began to demand independence. India, the jewel in Britain's imperial crown, achieved independence in 1947, setting a precedent for other colonies. The wave of decolonization swept across Asia and Africa, leading to the dissolution of the empire as more and more countries broke free from the chains of colonial rule. In the face of these challenges, Britain started to rethink its approach. Maintaining an empire was no longer feasible, both economically and politically. The focus shifted from empire building to fostering cooperation and mutual assistance. This led to the birth of the Commonwealth of Nations in 1949, a free association of independent states linked by shared history, culture, and values. The empire was no longer, but the ties that bound its members remained, albeit in a different form. The fall of the British Empire was not an overnight event, but a gradual process spanning decades. It was a complex interplay of economic constraints, political realities, and evolving global norms. The empire that had once painted the world map red was no longer; its sun had set. The fall of the British Empire marked the end of an era, but its legacy continues to shape our world today. The British Empire has left a lasting impact on the world. But what exactly is this legacy? The legacy of the British Empire is wide-ranging and has left its mark on all corners of the globe. This is particularly evident in the cultural, political, and economic spheres. Culturally, the British Empire's influence is perhaps most obvious in the English language. It spread this language to its colonies. And today, English is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world, a lingua franca in business, science, and international diplomacy. In the political sphere, the British Empire also left a significant legacy. Many former colonies adopted the British legal system, parliamentary democracy, and the rule of law. These systems still shape the way many countries are governed today. For instance, the Westminster model of parliamentary democracy, first developed in Britain, is now used in countries as diverse as Canada, India, and Australia. Economically, the British Empire established global trade networks that continue to thrive today. It laid the foundations for modern capitalism and the global economy. The empire's reach extended from the spice markets of India to the gold mines of South Africa, and from the tea plantations of Ceylon to the wool farms of Australia. It connected economies and markets across continents, creating a web of trade and commerce that helped shape the global economy as we know it. The empire's legacy, however, is not without controversy. The empire's history is also marked by exploitation, oppression, and the displacement of indigenous peoples. These aspects of its legacy are still being grappled with today. The sun may have set on the British Empire, but its influence can still be seen around the globe. The legacy of the British Empire is complex and multifaceted, a testament to its historical reach and impact. It remains a significant chapter in the story of our interconnected world. We've traveled through time, exploring the rise and fall of the British Empire. We saw its birth, an ambitious island nation striving to become a global power. We witnessed its expansion, fueled by the Industrial Revolution, as it spread its influence across continents. Then we entered the era of Pax Britannica, a period of relative peace under British dominance. Our journey took us to the Great War and its aftermath, a time of immeasurable change and challenge for the empire. We saw the decline, the inevitable fall of a once mighty power, and yet, even in its descent, the empire left an indelible mark on the world. Lastly, we examined the enduring legacy of the British Empire. Its impacts, both positive and negative, are felt to this day, shaping the world in myriad ways. The British Empire, a story of power, ambition, and influence, remains an integral part of world history.